I recorded this video once, but the microphone was not working properly, so let me just start again. So this is actually a diary entry recording, as you can already see here, but I think it will be way more useful to a lot of people than the one whom I send my diary entry recordings to, or whom I can share them with. And let me start by explaining the original segment of this, emotion and logic Punnett square, because this way of representation is, I guess, called Punnett square. It is done for genetic thing. I'm not that into biology. You can understand it like truth table of 0 and 1. Basically, two things can be described as binary. It's normal Gaussian distribution. This normal Gaussian distribution, it took quite a while for me to come and see this region, and this is mainly done for actual distribution and proportion of this that one should follow in their life. Ideally, not exactly, but ideally, if you follow this distribution, that is 2, 5, 8, you can convert it to the number. I wrote it with the percentage. It's like 20%, 30%, 30%, and 20%. That's all up to adds up to 100%. So in your life, you should have 20% of LL, 20% of EE, and like that. With harmonic flow of momentum between states, that is because of this thing that I have written here, because this is how it flows from one state to other, and how you should move from one being in one complete state to that state. AS stands for aspects, sadly, and the humanistic aspects of being emotional or being logical, and same emotion and logic. And when we make combination, permutation, whatever you want to call it, then EE is emotions, LL is logical logic, LE is logical emotions, EL is emotional logic. If you want to see the separate distribution, how a lot of people actually experience it, like a lot of people are not in these extremes of being emotion or being logic, or being logically logical. Just get the word, like being in the extreme state of completely being logical or completely being emotional. Emotion can also be thought as like pure emotion state, not having some logic in that. So a lot of people are in this aspect, like the normal Gaussian distribution stuff. And if we sum up the total distribution and the accessibility of this thing, then it will come to 50%. That is 50% of emotion and 50% of logic, distributed in various ways, because like if you add LL and E, you can get there, what I'm trying to say. So this is one of the things that I want to point out with respect to the balancing of life, the 8 folds of Buddha, not going there again. But coming to the flow thing, there could be 3 possible cases in this thing in which this case can be implemented. The first is like 20%, because again the extremes are very rare. So you are on the extreme of emotions, and you want to go to the extreme of logical logic. So why? Because the grass is greener on the other side, and also because of the fundamental thing of breakdown. Breakdown is essential for any kind of this polarity or pole movement from one extreme to the other extreme. It is not possible if you don't have this. You will be properly comfortable in the extreme that you are in, either even logical or emotion. So it is for 20% of people only, but anyhow, extreme emotions, you are comfortable in that, you are in that extreme. Then you use logic to interfere, so distract from emotion to structure logic emotions. You are in the comfortably in your own innate way of being into emotion or like pure emotional state. Then there is this breakdown, and you are like what to do. This breakdown can be anything. By breakdown you can say some extreme moment, some fuck up, some low moment in your life, however you want to put it. Breakdown means some event that makes you realize of a thing that you are not actually aware of, but was very integral to you, similar to infrastructures. If I have to give an example of this breakdown, then electricity, when electricity goes up, then you realize all the importance of electricity you have in life, but in general it makes you so life easy, but you don't even realize it. So breakdown happens, something focuses, and then you are like, you have to do something of it. Then you use your logic to interfere or distract. Initially, mostly people use intellect or logic to interfere and pleasure themselves through a lot of things, movies, series, drugs, alcohol. I don't take other examples, but they use logical ways of like watching a movie, of doing something that would distract them from the emotion that they were, and structure their emotions, because after distracting themselves from long, they also know that this is not going to be a solution. Then they use their logic to structure the fundamental concept of logic, referred to DSW, to structure their emotions. And when they structure the emotion, they also gain understanding of it. By logical emotions, I mean EQ, emotional quotient, or understandings of emotions. How does emotion work, empathy, and being able to work with emotion, handle emotions, all the skills of emotions, not just feeling emotions. Then you utilize emotions to direct intensity of logic to form emotional logic. Here I have used the word utilize instead of use, because utilize means using something that you already have expertise with, just using something that you already have, like utilizing something. There's difference, just Google it anyhow. So utilizing your expertise of emotions that you had already, so you are already good with emotions, you gained this new thing of logics, you use this logic for emotion thing, now you are using your emotion things for logic, like the chiral thing. You can see EL and LE are chiral things in some ways. And to form logical emotional logic can be simply understood as passion. When I say passion, I don't specifically mean passion of professionalism of your field of physics, chemistry, math, biology, dance, whatever it is. That is just one aspect of passion that is being experienced in this world through this simplistic form, but there are a lot of other versions of passion as well. So using your emotions to work with your logic, like having emotional connect with logic. The first one is having logical understandings of emotions, like workaround of emotions. The second is having emotional essence of logic, emotional connect with logic. They both are different things. And now after doing that, you are like in the pure logic states, because you have when you gain that connection with logic, then you probably able to like let yourself go in that logic states, and you get comfortable with extreme of logic. I wrote get comfortable because that's the end goal, similar to how you were extremely emotional comfortable. The comfort zone, your innate zone was emotion. Now you are like in comfortable zone of logical logic. So you have explored this new thing, you have got this new thing in your arsenal. And after that, the end cap of would be how would you realize that okay, it's done now we have to roll back, or this stage is also complete and now what to do. So the end cap is a non-emotional functional value. I have written non-emotional instead of writing logical, because there's difference between something being non-emotional and logical. Not going to that gray area, just use your own mind to figure it out. But non-emotional functional value, because functional values are what emotion or what logics are designed for. So if you have logic, then there must be some functional value based on which logic works. Like if you say in the first case, the apparent example, then your then your functional values was to structure your emotions or to work around with your emotions. Generally, all logic is tend towards having some kind of functional output of it. Once you reach that output, your logic thing is done. That would require pure logic. You don't have to have emotion there, but that is how you mark the end cap. Like that's done of the LL. And then rollback is logic, emotion, logic, emotions, and emotions. Like the similar way as you go. So once you do this to and fro, sometimes you between your states and between your being with the same and specific amount of proportion. The proportion is extremely important. 20, 30, 30, 20. Then you like properly get to experience all of your aspects of being human in their possible combinations to maximize your being. So yeah, that was the first case. Second is again the opposite of this, from logic to emotion. Similar breakdown is required. This one is very personal to me because I've explained this personally. I will not touch upon any of those topics. So extreme logic, similarly you are comfortable in that, using emotions to explore, excite from logic to discover emotional logic. Here I have especially used the word explore and excite because given that your logic, one of the function of logic is to explore and to be able to be in a better state, that like all logic is for that, to have the functional output of final logic is to be in a better state. So explore and excite, you can also draw the parallel of this with the CQ if I have already released it, or with the reinforcement learning thing, because that is also with exploration and exploitation. So one of the fundamental goal of exploitation is excitation. So it is like exploration and exploitation in some way. So use emotions, you are doing that for emotions now. You are using emotions to explore and exploit this emotion, and then you form some emotional connections with the logic that you're working with. So your logics is even more richer now, because now you're just not working with logical logics but also emotional logic. So you have that connect with that logic as well, from a new paradigm, from a new way that you had not experienced before. The second is utilize. Again, mark the difference between use and utilize. Utilize logic to understand, theorize of emotions, to form logical emotions. Given that this time, in spite of emotions being a strong side, your strong side is logic because you came from logical logic. So you will use your logic to understand and theorize the emotion thing that you have discovered. And theorize basically means understanding, you have understood those things, and then you compress them, formalize them, or theorize. Basically, you know what theorize means. In the first one, you had feeling of the emotions, relation of the emotions, and working with emotions, and then you understand this. In this, you are first understanding emotions, like logical emotions, EQ and all, and then you will get comfortable with the extremes of emotion. Then you are getting to feel it. Again, the opposite of earlier one. In the earlier one, you were first using emotions to form connections with logic, and then you are being logical. In the second one, you are first using logic to understand emotions, then being emotional. Just transversing from one aspect of other being aspect. Handicap of emotion is non-logical dharma of why. This took like specific 7 days for me to understand and formalize. Non-logical dharma, again I used non-logical instead of emotion because of some specific reason. And dharma, for those who does not speak Hindi, purpose you can say, or theory. Dharma is basically the thing that drives you, the driving force, the reason of your living. Or why, basically dharma of why. Dharma of why basically means all the theories that you have for your why. So there is difference between the functional value that is explored here and the reasoning of purpose of why that is explored here. It is again very chiral and can be drawn from the working and the functionalities of the DSW or CQ thing that I'm working on. The first one is like the first one, getting from emotion to logic is like the first of the DSW, the upper segment of logics, because you're going to logic. The second one is of emotions, of going to the emotional segment from logic. If you want to refer FDE, then it is the first one of emotion to logic is the path from 9 to 1, or the other one is from logic to emotion is the 9 to 1, because the rollback is similar to that of emotion, and logic similar to the opposite segment. And again, the more you do to and fro, the more you'll get to work with them easily. You'll get the overall understanding of the system and all of them. One thing that you are required to follow, and it is very essential, is to maintain this proportionality. You should not spend more amount of time in being logical. Like for the 50% of your time of your life, you are just logics, you are working logics and not giving much time to emotional aspects. You'll be just missing on life in general. The fundamental difference between the end caps of both of them, because they might be seeming different, is in first you reach the final goal and then you complete it, and in the second the reason of your final goal removes you from the emotional states. So the difference can be illustrated by an example. So let's say the final functional value of your life, or the final goal of your life, the reason of your life, is to make artificial conscious machines, or artificial wisdom machines, however you want to put it. So the logical end goal would be, after achieving the AC, after you achieve the AC, you'll be like logically you have done the purpose and then you're out. The emotion out, or the end cap, is the purpose or the drive to get that goal. The longingness of that why, of that reason to live, that will help you to get out of this emotional states, and then you can come back to states, because it is one of the harder things to get into any of this and not be able to come back. So it's like in one you complete one logic and then you go back. In other, these things pulls you back towards your other states. It's a bit different. You'll understand these things as I have understand. If you understand forward algorithm, back propagation algorithm, reinforcement learning, something similar to reinforcement learning for the forward algorithm, and all these concepts, so then it will become more apparent to you. And now coming to the third case, obviously the 60% of people fall in this segment. Most amount of people I know fall in this segment, who are in this kind of state, either in logical emotional states or in emotional logical states. Somewhere they fall in this segment. So they are, obviously the whole purpose is to be able to not just be in any of these states, but be in all these states with the distribution of 20, 30 and 20. So for them the path is similarly the same. Here also the path was similar, but they are very chiral, and the chiralities made a lot of differences. The intricacies were important. Here there is not much of chirality. The similarities are way too similar that I have just made and wrote them respectively. If you see the bracket thing, then LE, or logical emotions and emotional logics, are followed by emotion, logic, and whatever I have written. So they are in respective manner. You can understand that. In this, there was the breakdown thing that was important for one to move from, or to start their exploration, whatever you want to call it. Here, disturbance is enough, because for breakdown you need to be in extreme. Since you are not in extreme, then you will not have extreme outcomes of breakdown. You will just have disturbance. The problem that most people have, due to which they don't start to transcend or move from one state to another, is because of the bothering level that they have. If your bothering level is 10x and you are getting disturbed for 5x, then you'll never be bothered to do any movement or to do any change in your life or to do any change in your philosophies of life or do anything. But if your bothering level is 10x and the disturbance that you have in your life is like 15x, then you will be bothered. Disturbance, bothered, all of these are like the technical and specific technology that I'm choosing. You can understand examples of your own life. If you are like in a relationship with someone whom you are not bothered to break up with and they break up, you'll not do anything. But if you are bothered with someone breaking up and then they break up, then you'll do something. So this one is mainly done for purity. By purity I mean to get into any of these extreme states, given in which states you are. The fundamental concept of grass is greener on the other side always follows. So if you're in logical emotion states, then the extreme goal for would be logical logic, and if you're in emotional logic state, then extreme goal would be emotion. That's what you're striving for. So you are in the mixed state, starting with that cozy, comfortable, you're living that life in logical emotions or emotional logic. Then you jump to the nearest extreme of emotional logic, as it is comfort zone, supported and aligned by evolution, and you cannot go against evolution, so it is always better to make or plan your life with evolution. Basically, if you are in this states of emotional logic, you'll jump to your nearest states of logical logic, or if you are in this state, you'll jump to this state because it is supported by the evolution. You already have some understanding of logic, so it is better to jump in a state that has more logic and that is nearby to you, that you have already worked in some other way. If you are in logical states, if you are in logical emotion states, you have understanding of logic and emotions and all, then it is better to just get into pure emotion states. Because the next segment of this is then jump to the chiral state of emotional logic or logical emotions to exercise newly gained extremes in new domain. Because if you refer to case 1 and case 2, then you already have the expertise of logical logic or emotional logic when you are jumping to the other state, when you are coming to the third state, from here if you are coming to here, or from here if you are coming to here. So you need the expertise of this to work in this properly. If you have not understood and worked with emotions yourself properly, then you will not be able to exercise your work with those emotions in the emotional logic state. So when you have came back to your innate state or the extreme state of your nearest state, then you are required to jump, because you've already done this segment, so you are not required to waste more time in this. Then jump to this emotional logic state, and once you have jumped to this state, then you just transcend to this state, and you are required to use your more capabilities of being emotional. All of this new thing that you have gained, to exercise these things, you jump to this state and exercise the here, that, in that, and just come to this. The flow follows these specific route only, but there is a lot of jump here. So one thing that you need to be very careful is to get comfortable with the extreme, whichever extreme you want respectively, but gradually, because since you are jumping, a lot of jumping is required. From here you are going back against like the basic fundamental flow, so you're again jumping back, then you are jumping a step, and then you have to be gradual here, because the flow should be gradual. It could be something that could take a lot of time, because you've been again got comfortable with jumping, and if you jump from this to this, then it meets a lot of elements in between, so you don't have to jump here. That would be all, and cap and rollback remains the same because they are exterior property. The capping of the states in the end is not about from where and how, from which way you are coming. It is the property of the graph, it is property of the segment. So the capping and rolling back, how you're going back, remains the same. So if you are coming from the logic emotions or emotional logic, you will just follow your trace back, because the more rollback you do, the more movement you do, the more control and more overall realized understanding you'll have of the whole picture, of the whole process of movement, and the better you'll be able to function with them, and more you'll be able to explore the humanistic form. With respect to me, if we talk about me, then obviously I use Friedrich Nietzsche, because my vocabulary is not that good anyhow. The first 2.1 segment of this quotation points toward this, again other quotations of him. That does not apply to me, because why not is not a why. I also have some kind of quotations. I have a reason for not dying, but I don't have a reason for living especially. So it's a problem for me when it comes to this dharma of why. I don't have good enough of dharma of why, but I have a not why not to die. But running away from death is not sufficient to live, and that's the fundamental problem that I was having, due to which I came up to all of this, and I'm talking about it. The second thing of evolutionary addiction to survival is meaning to survive. The only meaning that I can find with respect to humanistic form and humanistic body is of evolutionary process of survival. Evolution has made us addicted to survive. All that is a different segment. I don't want to go in that. Already made a video talking about is happiness enough to survive. Well, that are my point. That's not the segment of this point video. The main thing was to talk about this thing that I newly realized, and I hope it be useful to some people. Have a good day. Bye. This will probably be the last video in this segment of videos that I'm recording these days, and I hope it be useful to some people. Have a good day. Enjoy. Let's do audio check now, because last time I did not did it. After so long I did not do audio check. I don't know why I did not. I recorded 26 minutes of clips. I hope the audio is coming good now. I'm not using the microphone. There was this weak connection here apparently. I'm not using microphone anyhow because I'm in my room and I don't think there would be any background noise to cancel anyhow.